Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're not just reading a transcript. We are stepping into a time machine. I want you to just close your eyes for a second.
Okay.
Picture a living room. Elmira, New York. It's late at night. The date is Wednesday, June 9th, 1965.
A very specific Wednesday.
A very specific Wednesday. Outside, the world is doing its 1965 thing. You know, traffic's whooshing by on wet pavement. Maybe you can hear a faint radio down the block.
Right.
But inside this room, the air is thick. It's heavy. And it's filled with smoke. I mean, literal cigarette smoke. It's the 60s.
Yeah.
But also a kind of electric psychological smoke.
It's that atmosphere of the unknown, isn't it? We're setting the stage for session 161 of the Seth material.
Exactly. And just to orient everyone, because, you know, we always have new listeners drifting in, we're looking at the transcript of a trance session.
Right.
It involves Jane Roberts, her husband Robert Butts, and for this specific session, two witnesses, Bill and Peggy Gallagher.
And this all comes from the early sessions, book 4. And, you know, we have to give credit where it's due right up front.
Always.
The Seth material is published by the New Awareness Network.
They really are the keepers of the flame. And listen, I'm going to say this now, and I'll probably say it again because I really mean it.
Go on.
If this deep dive hooks you, and honestly, if you've ever wondered why human beings get sick, it will hook you. You need to go to the source.
Absolutely. Don't just take our word for it.
Please don't. Go to sethcenter.com/the early sessions. Buy the books. You have to read the raw data for yourself.
We're just the tour guides here. The real territory, I mean, it's in those books.
It is.
And just a quick housekeeping note to keep everything above board.
Yep.
We want to declare that this podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms, and it's for educational purposes. We're not selling a cure here.
No.
We're exploring a philosophy.
Okay, so, scene set. Jane Roberts, who we know as Rupert in these sessions, is in a deep, deep trance. She's not Jane right now. She is channeling the energy personality essence known as Seth.
And her voice has changed. It's deeper.
Her gestures are different. And sitting right across from her is Bill Gallagher.
And Bill is, well, he's the reason for the season, so to speak.
He is. And Bill's not having a good time.
No, not at all.
Bill is suffering. He has a severe ulcer. He's in pain. And you can just imagine the desperation, can't you?
Oh, absolutely.
He's sitting in this dimly lit room, staring at this woman who's speaking with a ghost's voice. And he's just thinking one thing.
Fix me. Fix me.
That's the universal cry of the patient, isn't it? I hurt. Make it stop. Give me the pill. Give me the magic words.
Give me the surgery. But here's the hook. Here is the central mystery that we are going to unravel.
Okay.
Seth, this supposedly all-knowing entity, looks at Bill and says, no.
He refuses the quick fix.
He refuses to cure him. And the reason why he refuses is, well, it's one of the most chilling and mind-bending things I've ever read about the nature of illness.
It completely flips the script on modern medicine, really.
It really does. Because Seth describes this ulcer not as a hole in the stomach lining, not as, you know, a bacteria, not even just as stress.
No, he calls it a savage secondary personality.
That phrase, it still gives me goosebumps.
Me too. A savage secondary personality.
It sounds like something out of a possession movie.
It does. It implies the illness has a brain. It implies the illness has its own agenda.
So if you've ever wondered why some sicknesses just won't go away, or why you feel like you're fighting a war inside your own body, well, buckle up.
Because we are about to unpack the ego, the fear of change, and this whole idea of the sham of stability.
It's going to get weird.
But in the most useful way possible.
Okay, let's jump in. Segment 1, the danger of the quick fix. So the session opens. Seth is present. He acknowledges Bill right away.
He does.
But he sets a ground rule, a really important one. He says he is not going to give Bill a broad outline or some kind of speedy program for recovery.
Right. He actually says, we are indeed instead going to progress in a very slow manner and give him tidbits.
Tidbits. Can you imagine going to an ER, you're bleeding out, and the doctor says, you know what? I'm going to give you a tidbit of a bandage today.
You'd be furious. You'd be looking for another doctor.
I would. But we have to look at why Seth does this. It's not cruelty. It's actually this profound understanding of Bill's psychology.
Yeah, Seth explains that Bill plunges into solutions with the exact same energy he plunges into problems.
Desperation born from anxiety. That's the quote. Right?
That's the one. For the problem already has to do with the fact that he plunges into both dilemmas and solutions with a desperation that is born from anxiety, if not pure panic.
So the panic to get cured.
Yeah.
is actually the same flavor of energy as the panic that caused the ulcer in the first place.
Exactly. It is a perfect feedback loop. I mean,
Okay.
just think about our modern pill culture.
Okay.
We have a headache, we pop an Advil, we have heartburn, we take an antacid, we want the symptom gone now.
Right. So we can get back to our stressful lives.
We want to get back to the very thing that made us sick, but without the penalty. We want the result without the change.
That is so true.
And Seth is saying that for Bill, rushing into a cure is just another form of anxiety. If Seth gave him some 10-step program that night, Bill would attack it.
With ferocity.
If such tension that he'd just stress his body out even more.
It's like trying to relax by screaming at yourself to RLX now.
It is. I am going to relapse so hard.
Oh.
It defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah.
The cure for a stress-induced illness cannot be a stressful regimen.
It has to be a slow unwinding.
It has to be.
And there's another layer to this refusal that I found just fascinating. Seth talks about the danger of removing a symptom before the patient is ready to let it go.
This is a cornerstone of psychosomatic medicine, really.
Mhm.
Seth says, and I'm quoting again, "Nor do we want to rid him of one illness so quickly that he still feels a need for it, for in such a case he would indeed very promptly develop another."
That is such a heavy concept. Feels a need for it. I mean,
Yeah.
who on earth needs an ulcer?
Right.
Who wakes up and says, man, I'd really love some burning stomach pain today?
Consciously, no one, of course not. But subconsciously, I mean, that's where this deep dive really happens. We have to ask the question, what function is the illness serving?
You mean like getting out of work? Or getting sympathy from people?
Well, those are the surface benefits, sure. You could call them secondary gains. But Seth is pointing to something much, much deeper.
Okay.
The illness might actually be a structural component of Bill's personality right now. It might be a distraction. It might be a way to focus all this free-floating anxiety onto one specific point so it doesn't overwhelm the whole system.
So if Seth just waved a magic wand and poof, the stomach lining is healed instantly.
But Bill still has all this pent-up fear and these massive control issues.
Yeah, energy has to go somewhere.
It has to. It's like whack-a-mole. You whack the ulcer and pop. Up comes a migraine.
Or chronic back pain.
Or panic attacks.
Exactly. Biological whack-a-mole.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you treat the source, the subconscious need for the illness, you're just moving the furniture around on the Titanic.
You're not stopping the leak. Not at all. So Seth is forcing Bill to slow down. He's forcing him to look at the why before he gets the how.
He's refusing to let Bill bypass the lesson.
Because the lesson is the cure.
Okay, so if the panic is the symptom, let's look at the root cause. This brings us to segment 2, the ego versus action.
Right.
And this is where the philosophy gets a little dense, but I think if we unpack it, it explains, well, it explains almost everything about why we get stuck in life.
It really does. It's the core conflict. Seth diagnoses the blockage as a war between the ego and action.
So let's define our terms here, because action is a huge word in the Seth universe.
It is.
He doesn't just mean doing stuff, does he?
No, not at all. In the Seth material, action is basically synonymous with the fundamental nature of reality. It's flow, it's change, it's energy transforming.
So life itself.
Life is action. Your cells dividing is action. The seasons changing is action. It is the river of existence.
Okay, so if action is the river, what's the ego?
The ego, at least in the way Bill is using it, is trying to be a dam.
A dam.
Yeah, the ego wants stability. It wants to say, I am Bill, I am this specific person with these specific beliefs, and I want everything to stay exactly like this.
He wants to stand apart from the flow and control it.
Yes, so
Yeah.
you have the irresistible force of life.
Meeting the immovable object of the ego.
And the friction between those two things, that heat, that grinding,
That's the ulcer.
that's the ulcer.
Wow, that makes so much sense. The ulcer is the physical manifestation of the ego trying to put the brakes on life.
Seth puts it really starkly. He says, the ego of the personality does not trust its own inner organisms. It must attempt to stand apart from them and keep an eye on them.
Keep an eye on them. That just screams of a trust issue.
It's a profound mistrust. I mean, think about it. Your body is a miracle of automation.
Right.
Your heart beats, your liver filters toxins, your stomach digests. You don't have to think about any of it. It just happens. It flows.
Yeah, I don't have to sit here and tell my kidneys, okay, guys, filter left, now filter right. It does its thing.
But Bill's ego acts like it has to. It's the micromanager from hell.
Oh, the micromanager analogy is perfect. We've all had that boss, right? The one who stands over your shoulder while you're trying to type.
Exactly. And imagine a boss who is so terrified that his employees are going to mess up that he tries to do everyone's job for them. He's hovering, he's criticizing, he's constantly tense. What happens to the office?
Oh, morale just tanks. Everyone gets stressed out. Mistakes actually go up because everyone is constantly looking over their shoulder. The whole system breaks down.
That is Bill's body.
Mhm.
His ego is the terrified boss. His stomach is the beleaguered employee.
Right.
The ego is just staring at the stomach saying, are you doing it right? Are you safe? Is this food safe? I need to control this. And the stomach is just screaming, dude, back off. You're giving me an ulcer.
Literally.
Literally.
Mm.
Seth says the ego strains for its reserves of energy because it cuts itself off from the main power source, which is the inner self.
So it's running on battery power.
It's running on battery power, trying to control a universe that is designed to run on automatic. And that strain creates physical lesions. It's not a metaphor.
The psychological tension becomes biological tissue damage.
That's the key takeaway. The mind and the body aren't two separate things. They are the same thing at different densities. The tightness of the ego becomes the tightness of the stomach.
Okay, now here's where it gets a little confusing for me.
Mhm.
Or shammy, if that's a word.
I think it is now.
We've painted this picture of Bill as this rigid, controlled, repressed guy. But the witnesses, and Seth himself, mentioned that Bill's actually quite explosive. He has a temper, he yells.
Right. If you met him, you wouldn't think repressed. You'd think volatile or intense.
So how can he be repressed if he's always exploding? This is segment 3, the sham of intensity. Seth calls this emotional behavior a sham.
A trick, a pretense.
Yeah. And this is one of the most insightful parts of the whole session. Seth argues that the explosions are actually a defense mechanism to hide the repression.
Okay, unpack that. Because usually we think blowing up is letting it out.
Not always. Think of it like a decoy flare from a jet fighter.
Okay.
Seth says that by reacting explosively to small, safe provocations, traffic, a dropped spoon, some minor annoyance, the ego can tell itself a story.
And that story is?
See, I am emotional. I am expressing myself. I am a fiery, passionate person.
So he's performing emotion.
He's venting surface pressure to avoid dealing with the deep pressure. He screams about the traffic so he doesn't have to scream about the fact that he's secretly hates his job or fears death or doesn't know who he is.
It's just noise. The explosion is just noise to drown out the silence where the real scary stuff lives.
Exactly. It's a sham because it pretends to be deep feeling, but it's actually just shallow irritation. Seth says the harder the ego attempts to hold down the emotions, the more explosively will they show themselves upon the least provocation, and the worse the ulcer becomes.
It's the difference between a pressure cooker letting off steam through that little wobbling valve on top.
Right.
Versus actually taking the lid off.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
The steam valve is hissing really loudly. That's the temper tantrum.
But the reason it's hissing is because the lid is clamped down tighter than ever. He's not opening up. He's just leaking.
And that leaking is scalding his insides.
Yes. The sham intensity convinces the ego that it's safe and in control, but the body knows the truth. The body is holding the real charge of the repressed emotions, and that charge burns.
Which brings us to the segment that genuinely gave me the creeps. Segment 4, the ulcer as a secondary personality.
This is where we go from, Psychology 101 to Metaphysics 500.
Yeah, it is. Because Seth stops treating the ulcer like a medical condition. He starts talking about it like it's a person,
A roommate.
a savage roommate.
Let's read the quote, because the delivery here really matters. The transcript says, Jane's voice got very loud, very booming. Seth says, we have here this evening a secondary personality that attempts to rule the complete life of the personality. And its name is Ulcer.
And its name is Ulcer. It's so definitive, so declarative. It sounds like he's performing an exorcism on a demon.
In a way he is, but the twist is, the demon is self-created.
So when he says secondary personality, he's using a term that's usually reserved for things like, split personalities, dissociative identity disorder.
Correct. But Seth extends that definition. He's saying that if you pour enough energy, enough focus, and enough emotion into a symptom, it begins to take on a life of its own.
It gains a rudimentary consciousness.
Yes.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
So the ulcer has wants. It has desires.
Its primary desire is survival. And how does an ulcer survive?
By hurting. By demanding attention.
Exactly. By ruling the host's life. I mean, think about how Bill lives. He organizes his entire day around his stomach.
Right. I can't eat that. I need to take my medicine. I can't go there. I might get sick.
The ulcer sits at the head of the table. It dictates the schedule. It's the tyrant king of his life.
And Seth calls it strong and savage. It's aggressive. It fights for its territory.
But, and this is the empowering part, Seth also says it's not real, or rather, it's not him.
This is the crucial distinction.
Yeah.
We tend to identify with our illnesses.
We do.
We say, my ulcer, my anxiety. We claim ownership. We invite them into the family.
And Seth just shuts that down hard. He says, it is not a part of you like your arm. It did not come to you in your chromosomes for duplication.
I love that line. He's saying, look at your arm. Your DNA built that. Your ancestors gave you that. It belongs to you.
This ulcer, this is an add-on. This is aftermarket junk you bolted onto the chassis.
It's excess baggage.
It is. It's a heavy suitcase you're carrying that you never even checked in. And Seth is telling him, drop the bag, Bill. It's not your arm. You can walk away without it.
It's such a funny but powerful way to look at it. You wouldn't say, oh, I can't go to the party. I have to stay home and babysit this heavy rock I found.
You just put the rock down.
Right.
But the ego loves the rock because as long as it's carrying the rock, it has an excuse for everything.
I can't run fast. I'm carrying a rock. I can't take risks. I'm carrying a rock.
The rock is safe. The rock is a known quantity. And that leads perfectly into segment 5. Food, fear, and safety.
Because the way Bill interacts with the rock, with the ulcer, manifests in how he eats.
The picky eater syndrome.
Exactly. Bill rejects many foods. Now, medical logic would say, well, obviously, spicy food hurts an ulcer, greasy food hurts it. It seems purely biological.
But Seth says, not so fast.
He sees it symbolically.
He interprets eating symbolically. What is eating, really? It's taking a piece of the outside world, a plant, an animal, a fruit, and putting it inside you.
It's the ultimate act of intimacy with the environment.
And it requires trust. You have to trust that this foreign object won't kill you. You have to trust your body to break it down and use it.
Digestion is transformation. It's action.
So when the rigid ego tries to stop action, it naturally tries to stop eating, or at least control it rigorously.
So the bland diet isn't just about managing stomach acid. It's a metaphor for a bland life.
Boom. That's it. Seth argues that by rejecting food, Bill is physically acting out his desire to reject stimuli. He wants to shut the world out. He wants to enclose himself in what he considers a safe world.
I will only eat white rice and plain toast.
I will only talk to these 3 people.
I will only think these safe thoughts.
It's all the same mechanism. The ego narrows the world down to this tiny, manageable slit. And the ulcer is the perfect bouncer at the door, keeping everything else out.
It's an insidious blockage, as Seth calls it.
It is. It's fear masquerading as health consciousness. He thinks, I'm just taking care of my condition.
But Seth says, no. You are hiding from life behind a shield of pain.
Man, that is a lot to digest.
Pun intended.
But accepted.
So we've diagnosed the problem. The ego is a terrified micromanager who hates change.
Yep.
It created a savage pet called Ulcer to distract from its deep fears. It uses fake temper tantrums to hide real repression. And it uses diet to block out the world. Bill is in a fortress of his own making.
That is the situation report.
So how does he get out? Seth refused the quick fix. What is the slow fix? Let's talk about segment 6, the prescription.
The prescription is something Seth calls psychological time.
Okay, we've touched on this in previous deep dives, but let's assume I'm Bill. I'm skeptical, I'm in pain. What do you want me to do?
Seth prescribes a very specific exercise, 15 minutes a day. That's it.
15 minutes.
But in those 15 minutes, the goal is to shut the micromanager up.
Send the boss to the break room.
Exactly. The exercise involves closing your eyes, finding a quiet spot, and deliberately tuning out your physical stimuli. You stop focusing on the traffic outside. You stop focusing on the pain in your stomach. You stop focusing on your to-do list.
You just float.
You float. You dissociate from the ego and the body's senses. And in that silence, you invite the inner self to step forward.
Seth talks about creating intimacy. He says, you will find here an intimacy with portions of yourself which you would tend to ignore.
That word intimacy is so crucial. Bill is estranged from himself. He treats his body like an enemy and his inner self like a stranger he doesn't trust.
So psychological time is like a date with yourself.
It's building a relationship, rebuilding trust.
And why does this cure the ulcer? Is it just, simple relaxation?
It's more than just relaxation. It's a redistribution of energy. Remember, the ego is using a massive amount of energy to hold those dam walls up.
To keep the repression in place,
Yeah.
to feed the ulcer personality.
Right. When you enter psychological time, you drop the dam walls. The energy flows naturally again. The micromanager stops strangling the employee. And the body, which knows perfectly well how to heal itself, finally gets the resources it needs to do so.
So you're not actively healing the ulcer. You're just stopping the behavior that is causing the ulcer, and
Yeah.
then the body just heals itself.
That's it. Seth implies he could cure the ulcer with a suggestion. He says, very easily, through suggestion, I could cure, so it would seem, your ulcer.
He has the power.
But he won't use it.
Because if he just zaps the ulcer away, Bill hasn't learned to trust his inner self. The fear is still there. The need for a distraction is still there.
And we're right back to whack-a-mole.
Exactly.
Seth says the very journey involved in self-discovery is indeed part of the process of recovery. The cure isn't the destination. The cure is the change in personality that happens while you're on the journey.
It's like, okay, if you're broke because you have terrible spending habits and I just give you $1 million,
Right.
I haven't solved your problem, you'll just be broke again in a year.
Correct.
But if I teach you how to budget, how to invest, how to value yourself, then you become wealthy and you stay wealthy.
That is the Sethian approach to health. It's not about patching the tire. It's about learning how to drive so you stop hitting potholes.
Okay, now before we wrap this up, we have to talk about segment 7. Because if we stopped right here, Seth would sound like this very stern, serious medical philosopher.
The gloomy ghost.
The gloomy ghost, exactly. But the session ends on a completely different note. The whole vibe just shifts.
It really does. The transcript describes Jane, who is still channeling Seth, grinning broadly. Her eyes are wide open, just staring at them, and Seth starts cracking jokes.
He looks at this little group, Jane, Rob, Bill, Peggy, sitting in this smoky room, probably looking terrified and serious,
I'm sure.
and he roasts them.
He calls them nervous birds perched on a peaked roof in the midst of a high wind.
That is such a vivid image.
Yeah.
Just these little pigeons holding on for dear life.
And he's the wind, or at least he's watching the wind blow. He's telling them, relax, you look ridiculous holding on so tight.
And he teases Rob. Rob, who is just scribbling furiously in shorthand, trying to keep up with every word Seth says.
He does. Seth says he is blackmailed by Rob's cramping writing hand. He says he wants to talk faster, he wants to share more, but he's limited by the poor guy's wrist.
He calls it your human limitations, but he says it with such affection.
That's the key. There is real affection there. He says, and Joseph, oh dear Joseph, I would even now, but for your natural reticence, really speak out.
He's poking fun at Rob's shyness, his natural reticence.
And Seth expresses a desire to be less decorous. He feels like they've all been a bit too stiff and serious. He wants to show his playful nature.
You know, I think this is so important for you, the listener, to understand. We talk about entities and channels, and they can all sound very robotic or spooky.
It can.
But Seth comes across as a personality, a witty, observant, slightly sassy friend.
A friend who sees right through you.
The best kind of friend, really.
It humanizes the source. It reminds us that spiritual wisdom doesn't have to be dry and dusty. It can be funny. It can be warm.
Even when he's telling you that you created your own ulcer.
You did this to yourself, you nervous bird.
Exactly. So, let's bring this all home. We've covered a massive amount of ground today.
We certainly have.
We've learned that the quick fix is a trap because it just feeds the anxiety loop.
Yep.
We've learned that the ego creates illness when it tries to dam up the river of action. We've learned that an explosive temper can be a sham to hide deeper repression.
And we've learned that an illness can become a secondary personality, a savage little pet we feed with our fear.
And the way out is to stop feeding the pet. To spend 15 minutes a day in psychological time, ignoring the ego and building trust with the inner self.
That's it in a nutshell.
If there is one thing, one single nugget, that you want the listener to take away from session 161, what is it?
I think for me, it's the concept of excess baggage. The idea that your symptoms, your neuroses, your blocks, they aren't you.
Right.
They aren't in your chromosomes. You picked them up along the way. And because you picked them up, you have the power to put them down. You are not your ulcer. You are the consciousness that is experiencing the ulcer.
And you can choose a different experience.
You can. That is incredibly liberating. You are not the rock. You're just the guy carrying it.
Precisely. And I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on.
Yeah.
We talked about the ulcer being a secondary personality.
Right.
If a stomachache can be a person, what else in your life fits that description?
Ooh, that's the scary question.
Is your anxiety a secondary personality?
Hmm.
Is that grudge you've been holding against your ex for 5 years? Does that have a name? Is it a savage secondary personality that you are feeding breakfast to every single morning?
What other pets are living in your house rent-free?
Maybe it's time to evict them.
I think that's the perfect note to end on.
This has been a deep dive into session 161 of the Seth material. I cannot stress this enough. Go to sethcenter.com/the early sessions. Buy the early sessions, book 4, read the whole thing. We just scratched the surface.
Truly. The New Awareness Network has done an amazing job preserving all this material. Please go support them.
And remember, this podcast is free, it's for education, and we do it because we genuinely love exploring these ideas.
Until next time.
Don't be a nervous bird. Trust the flow. See ya.